Why don't we call the meeting to order? So it's 7:02. And why don't we do a roll call? And Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Mary Ann Weatherall, present.
David Farag, present.
Tom Reardon, present.
Carol Bestick, present.
Jennifer Dial, present.
Jimmy Glassmeyer, present. Jenny Nodney, present.
Excellent. Well, now Tracy is our parliamentarian. We have our state required annual meeting, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of public interest. Given that the two people I can identify have come for different purposes.
Yeah.
So do we have to go through a song and dance, or can we just,
Well- Yeah, probably because there might be someone online.
Correct.
is there
Yeah.
anybody online?
There's no one online right now, nope.
Why don't we proceed with the agenda? Absent that, although I have asked Mary Ann to be on tap, so,
I am prepared.
well, maybe for the purposes of the record
Yeah, let's just,
and for anyone who does show up, we could do that. Is that,
Sure, we could do it now or at the end. It is detailed.
maybe at the end, to see whether we pick up anybody in the, okay. Very good. So, Chris is coming to talk about, funding options on the farm. So,
he's not here yet.
yeah, so that.
And I don't see anyone from the Cohasset Housing Authority here yet either.
Well, Ginny.
Oh, Jenny.
uh, It's nice to have a chair.
She's our two people.
Uh, In any event, so maybe, maybe we'll hold on the farm and go to the housing authority.
Well,
Huh?
We finished roll.
We didn't record, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions on the proposal? I was ill the last meeting, so I know Kathy said there were some questions about. why
They
some-
sent,
For the reshingling of the roofs.
right.
Oh, we
Right,
got- we
and we
got-
got
we
a
got a
supplemental
letter, yeah.
explanation as to.
yes, so we got that one.
So, yeah. The thing is, it's a fabulous opportunity for a 2-to-1 match. Fill up program, the state. runs it. But you have to have a grant in place first, and then you can apply for this. And they will go up to 2/3 more. You know, so the project is 827.
827, yeah.
That's the estimate of the professionals that do our calculating for us, so assessments.
I was interested by, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was interested in the point that Taffy made on if the bid comes in lower, then the funds are, the differentials are
Back to
split.
the state.
Split
No,
even.
are they split
Yeah.
evenly? Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
split by,
yeah,
so,
third, a third, a third,
yeah,
oh, okay,
so that-
yeah. And if we don't get the grant, then
which doesn't go anyway.
That application due soon? Wasn't,
Sorry?
Isn't your grant, is the grant application due soon?
it's already in.
Oh,
I did the request. for-
Kathy presented the request and then
Yeah,
there
I
were
did too.
questions and then she did the
Yeah,
follow-up.
and this is I did the final grant about a week after I did, it, because I knew what the process.
I don't think the
was.
final one.
What-
I mean, has it?
I think we have both, but when is the state grant due?
Well, I think we would put it in, it's right after the town meeting. is approved. We don't want to wait any longer than possible, because I have no idea how much money they have or how long these grants would be available. So it behooves us and our advisor from our cats, sounds good. Very encouraging. You know, we've had some good matches between the state and the CPC. Quite a number, actually. So they love it when the community supports us. I trust vice versa.
Mm.
assuming that all went well, when would you think construction will start?
Well, I figured it would take by the time they got the bids out and everything, maybe we could do part of it in the fall, but Taffy said, oh, no. She
Oh, yeah.
said, they'll get the bids out and they'll roof all the way through December.
Mhm.
So, you know, they, once they get started, so that's why we amended and said, maybe, you know, have the money up front if we
Yeah,
don't.
the
use it all
25th, yeah,
for the
yeah.
Next year, fine, but we may actually get it done in 225.
Okay,
But it could go into 26.
It could, yeah, it depends on how fast the fill-up funds would come through and how fast the bid can be done.
any further questions, Marianne,
I know.
David,
No,
Carol,
No,
I'm good.
Amy?
I was just wondering what pot of resources this money would come out of.
Affordable housing.
So
There are
you have your own separate
No,
fund,
the CPC.
because I know that there's this.
Yeah.
And,
No,
okay,
this and community housing here,
Mhm.
community housing here,
okay.
and community housing total available.
I see, okay.
so there is enough available in community housing to do the 20,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and The only other money that's allocated kind of is to the trust, the housing trust.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have they spent any of that? I
Wait,
know
this-
there's a set
No,
aside of
I don't know, I have not heard that they have.
And you could use undesignated if
Yeah.
there was any extra.
So could you explain to me how long money stays in any one grant account before it gets expended?
Well, it depends on,
I mean,
What-
have you zeroed out categories before?
no, not.
So
Well,
you-
actually,
You continue to carry a significant balance.
well, it says designated only for open space and recreation is zeroed out.
Okay, so I'm just asking because of this, the number of funds and the extent to which you have the opportunity or are required
Required, yeah.
to spend out at any point in time. When you don't have a requirement, you have a harder time making a decision.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
When you do have a requirement, you also have a difficult decision to make. In some of these, I mean, it's an essential item.
Mm,
I think using that as a value proposition, then the building has to be repaired because the residents won't be able to live in there based on what you've been told. But there's other things which are also on the docket, which are discretionary, and
Right.
literally completely discretionary. And then those are the ones that are very difficult if they're large. And we face two large
Yeah, we see one
investments.
large one, yeah.
And so then the question becomes, what's the strategy for making the investment? And how do you do it so you feel good when you're done?
Well, there's options that we can use what's in the bucket here, or we can estimate what's coming in from the revenue for the coming year. And then we can look into bonding, which would be another one. And that's looking at revenue for the next 10 years. So there seems to be always an opportunity to fund these projects because each bucket is 10%. And if there's leftover and undesignated, and after we pay our accounting and things, we can use that as well.
So we're not constrained by the amount of money in each of those pots because you have $1.4 million right now in undesignated money that can supplement any of those accounts.
Mhm.
So,
But there isn't, and just correct me if I'm wrong, when I read all the documents, there's no, once the money's in there, it sits in there in perpetuity,
Yes.
right? There's no
Until we pull
deadline.
it-
that's right.
Until you
Right.
pull it out
So
or
it
until
isn't
it's,
until
Yeah,
you,
until
until we
it's
reverse it out.
Right, but
until you spend it.
Yeah, well,
To the
not
extent
necessarily
that
spend it
there's a
because you
lot-
could also pull it back. If they can't get the funding, that money comes back and it's not
But there were a
usable.
lot of projects, actually, that were funded, but for one reason or another, they
Never went through.
kept through, so.
Right.
And
that's
money is
something
not,
we have to- Sorry.
Go
Well,
ahead.
that's something that we have to do is probably for 2025, is look back at the projects that were probably funded in 23 and 22 and see have they finished up or not.
they haven't, yeah.
And if they haven't, they need to come before us and explain why, or the money gets returned to us. And that's something we
That's something
haven't
we need
done that much in the past, but we now have more accountability.
I'll-
that we're asking.
Yeah.
Since we're on the
It was
subject.
what, 3?
Is that a good
years?
story?
Is that the timeline to use it? Is it 3 years? when,
Yeah, I
when your
think we
grants
set
is the
a
money?
timeline of
No?
3
Pardon me?
years.
Is it three?
Yes,
3 years?
Five,
Timeline?
now it's
It's
3.
3.
They have 3 years.
But we did finish our painting project. They did a super job. And came in, really, it was 37,000 or something plus another 15,000, 20,000.
And the funds are only released when we have invoices for the
Yeah.
work having been done.
Right.
So we don't send a check and then they account for it. We pay
No
on,
prepayment.
exactly.
No. We've also assigned like a person from the board to monitor, to work with that group as well, so that they are keeping up. They are, so someone's checking in and there's more accountability than in the past. So we'll probably assign for future projects, once it goes through, once the
Okay.
project is approved by town meeting, that's when it gets into a system where someone is assigned and just starts working with that project.
Someone from this board.
Although, it wouldn't be a bad idea for some projects. When somebody does their preliminary grant proposal, if it looks like they might need some help, that we could just assign somebody at that point,
We could do that.
to help prepare their grant. proposal.
Right. Or they could just come to us or meet with us. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yes. And I guess from a philosophical perspective, I was also in a little bit of a way testing the methodology that you use to decide what to do. And the harder it gets, because of the nature of what the projects are and the category of the money, then you have much more challenging decisions that you have to
Yeah.
make and weighing which can we do? Because on one hand, there's money in the pot, but on the other hand,
You have 5 or 6
that money
projects.
both is constrained in certain ways because it has regulations around it, but also it's really just, it's scale. How do you make the decision of one
Project to take,
project
yeah.
versus another?
It's not unknown that we would say to somebody, we're not comfortable with that amount, but we just scale the project back a bit.
Yeah,
And, then maybe we'll do something else, like some of the big recreation projects that ran into millions, and we said.
Mm.
No, but we did fund generously, but. So,
Well, there has to be some conditions so that they just don't run rampant.
yeah.
Or that it has to be it really does have to be a public facing project.
Mm.
Some people think. I think there's projects that's come before us that look more private and we need to encourage them to be more public as
Yeah.
well. So,
there are a few that are used widely by the public that actually, I have them down as supported by memberships. But there are very few actually.
Yeah.
that-
Okay. All right. Jackie, do you want to come forward on,
Are we
are we what?
finished with the housing?
Well, we're finished discussing it. We'll see whether we come to a vote
Later.
later. Want suspense.
Yeah.
We don't want life too easy.
Because I don't know. if-
Yes, could you
Oh,
come up,
Bring a
Jackie?
chair.
So,
Jacqueline Dorman, sir.
yes, can you come up and sit at the,
Table.
bring
a
your chair with you?
I'm here on behalf of the Historical Commission
Okay,
to ask for money from your historic preservation category to support our effort to create a new local historic district in the downtown area. And we will be forming a study committee. But this study committee will need to have a preservationist consultant to help them because it could be very onerous. And the preservation consultant, and I've spoken to one, and this is the sort of thing he does, or she. They'll attend historic district study committee meetings as needed to provide guidance. They'll draft a preliminary study report with support as needed from the committee. And this study report is required by the Mass Historical Commission. There's a template, there's a format that they have to follow. The consultant will attend the committee-initiated community and town meetings as needed. And that's very important because you need to get buy-in from for example, the downtown area, which is what we're interested in making a historic district out of. And so you need to have someone with credibility and who can explain very clearly what's involved in historic district. What regulations are, what scope they have to create an addition or a new building.
Is this an extra governmental agency?
The study committee,
No,
or
but if you have a historic district,
yeah,
how is that managed? How is that implemented?
well, there's an existing one, that's the Cohasset Common Historic District. And there is a Historic District Commission. And if somebody wants to add an addition to a building or construct a new building, they have to come before this Historic District Commission and get a permit from them to do what they want to do, and then they go to the planning board, and so forth. So it's a part of town government.
Would they be established through,
The select board will appoint and this is, in fact, I mean, with the select board tomorrow to have them set up a study committee. And then the study committee typically becomes the historic commission. And they're the ones, it's like a design review board. They're the ones that a developer or a property owner will come before them, show the committee their plans. And the committee will just ensure that it's compatible with the style of the district and is an appropriate scale and so forth. So,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
oh, that's okay. No, please ask any questions. I'm just,
Question I have is, would that be part of the one, or would you be setting a new one,
well, this would be a new
commission?
commission.
Okay.
The Cohasset Common District Commission was asked if they wanted to do this, and they opted
No.
not to.
Okay, so that,
So this will be a new group. And it could be expanded in the future too. We wanted to start relatively small, so want to be successful. We want, we need 2/3 vote of town meeting to create this district. So if it's successful, it's possible that it could be expanded in the future to include Elm Street, part of the harbor, Summer Street, that whole very historic area in Cohasset. But it depends,
The Town Common Historic District, that covers just the common. What
Yes.
does the village cover? What?
Okay, I think I sent you a map, did I not? I don't know whether you got that in a packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really mostly the South Main Street area from, say, Sotheby's to the Red Lion Inn. And then the area around it, Brook Street, which would include the Masonic Hall, and then Elm Street with the 2 Historical Society buildings, the Maritime Museum and the John Wilson House.
But it also include Fleming's, which is a very.
Yes,
So
yeah,
all the way up to
Fleming,
the court.
all the way up, yeah, probably 2 Flemings, and maybe,
Well,
see,
the
this,
building next door is also.
Yeah, I think the study committee really determines this. We kind of made an outline of where we thought it would be appropriate, but they can determine exactly, where they want the boundaries to be for this area, but it would include the Cohasset Savings Bank, which is historic 1898. That building next to it, which was a blacksmith shop at one time. So it really encompasses that downtown area, which isn't huge, but it needs to be protected because, the gas station building was first proposed really was not appropriate. And then they came up with a better design, and now I think that's not going to happen anyway. But eventually a building will be built there. The open space between French Memories and the Barrel could be developed. It's owned by a consortium of business people, and they could decide to build a building there. There used to be a store in that area.
Would this exclude the Cohasset Village Historic District? Or be on top of it, like,
Well,
I'm sorry, would the Cohasset Village Historic District cover the existing organization, or would it be it's a new entity, but would it cover the town center rather?
Well, it will be it's the downtown area. It probably would be called, it could either be called like the Cohasset Village Historic District, or it could be the Cohasset Center Historic District, which might, allow it to be a lot more open than just the village part.
Oh, I'm sorry, to be more clear, would it exclude the town common?
Yeah, they
Yes,
have their
yeah,
own
they
right now.
have their own separate authority.
Would it include the Red Lion and up that
Yes.
street to the top?
Yeah, I don't, it could,
Seems like a logical.
yeah, it just depends, you can
Sure.
discuss it with the study committee.
What is the 25,000?
Okay, first of all, we have to get, and we spoke to the Historical Commission Administrator from Hingham, who's now retired. She came to speak to us, and she said, one thing you really need is an engineered map of the historic district with very precise boundaries, and it has to be stamped by the engineer. And it's filed with the county and so forth. So that costs money. That I did get a quote actually from a local engineer in Situate, I think, for $9,000 for this map. And then a larger cost would be for the consultant. And I'm asking about 15,000 for him or her. And that should cover maybe 2 years. It might cover the whole thing, because I think there's a fair amount of information existing. He or she is not going to have to do a lot of research, I don't think. But that person will be interfacing with the public, which is very important. And creating the study report, which is also key. And this is something that the Mass Historical Commission refers to later on if they're asked a question or something. So those are the two costs that I can think of. I don't think there's anything else.
Can I ask a question? Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Does the town have, so getting a reconciled map is a public document, and
Yes,
that's why it costs that much.
okay,
But there are people in the town who may actually have the skills to make a general map, so you have something to go with to know what you're getting.
well, actually, we're using the assessor's map. If you look at that, the map that I think I sent you that might be on your cell phones or something, it's the assessor's map, so it's quite precise for the properties. But beyond that, I don't know. I think the boundaries have to be very exact in case there's some dispute over, you know, if one shop owner wants to build an addition, you know, is it going to encroach on the adjacent property and so forth? It has to be very, very precise, and that's why you have to pay for a professional. Yeah, I drew a boundary, but that's, you know, that wouldn't count for anything.
Are residents of South Main Street and Burke Street, are they wanting this? Is this something desired?
Well, I know that along Elm Street, there are people who would like to have this. It seemed, well, we had a meeting with Jean Dippold when she was chair of the select board, and Amy and several other people. And they decided that probably it would be better not to ask all those people if they want to go through a district committee, because they're going to have, I think flooding issues they had to deal with, and she didn't feel that they would want that. So we didn't really ask residents. I've spoken to a couple of the shop owners, and they seem fine. They need to be reassured that, you know, they can paint the building a
Orange.
different color orange.
Although
Well,
that is actually one of the most
Yeah,
problematic
yeah, that-
problems.
Yes.
That can be determined by the study committee, and they have to meet with the various, they have to get the buy-in. See, this is very premature, because the study committee people are the ones that really should be talking with the property owners in the village. And then if the study committee finds that paint color is a huge issue, they can either just eliminate it from the design requirements, or else they can, I think there's a palette that they can use that's sort of accepted.
And they
And
not just also have the option of using the original colors in buildings.
well, they probably, I think, well, it's changed. They can, whatever is there.
Break down in your phone.
Yeah, well, I suppose you could do that, you know, that's
I
a
mean,
good
that should be-
argument, right?
Well, it would be more authentic.
Right, but yeah,
Instead of just printing it.
Right. well, these issues would come out in discussion. Study committee, that's what they're all about.
Are there state standards that define a historic district?
Well, yeah, I guess there are, first of all, there have to be historical buildings, historically significant buildings in the area.
I don't need to know what they are. I'm just interested.
Yeah.
Are there state standards that says, if you have a historic district, this is what its powers are, this is how.
Oh, yes, yeah, there are.
So you pop it into a framework.
Well, you can, and it's up to the town. I guess you discuss it with the consultant, would discuss it with the committee and town council, maybe, but there are actually existing guidelines. The planning board has some good design guidelines for that area. But that's why you have a consultant who is experienced.
I have
Good,
a
any questions?
question. So the consultant then is the one who would go, as you said, and go speak with the businesses and work.
Well, yeah, actually, the study committee people should too.
Okay.
But usually I think what happens is that they'll call 2 or 3 meetings over time and try to get as many people, and people will come because of course they're going to be concerned about it.
And so is there then, so is this sort of or are you assuming it's a done deal? Or after spending this money, is there a chance that it wouldn't happen?
Yes, that has to be passed by town meeting, but you have to be able to tell town meeting what your rules and regulations are. So you have to have everything pretty much in place. And
Which is like all about it.
yeah,
Yeah, plus
Sure.
you're getting the buy-in from all the businesses in that area as well.
Well, for most,
most of
well,
them?
it depends. If it-
I think I would be a little upset if,
nobody want, if, well, you wouldn't do it if.
no, I think I'd be a little upset if I had a business and all of a sudden I'm told I have to do this by all the other businesses. I would say, oh, I don't think I want this. I think it has to be almost unanimous that everybody in that.
Well,
area-
it's really not that onerous. The commission works with the property owners. Often there's a compromise, don't make it quite so big, but you can have.
What happens if somebody's not willing to follow this, that kind of kibosh the whole
They
thing?
have, no, if town meeting votes it, that it's a town decision.
Also, then it becomes,
There's not a whole lot of room downtown to
no.
add on big additions or anything like that.
No, you can't
But
really.
you just want to make sure that any changes are compatible
Yeah.
with the existing style. And so want to enhance the downtown, make it look
Yeah.
better.
Well,
Thank you.
I just had a quick question. From talking with Hingham, what do you see as the advantages of having a historic district for the village? for the
Well,
city?
first of all, it ensures that any new construction or additions or changes that could be seen from a public way. I mean, they can do whatever they want behind the buildings where no one could see it, or anything in the interior. But it ensures that it's appropriate. It also, it's good for the town as a whole because it shows that the town cares about preserving its heritage. It enhances property values, actually, to have your shop in a historic district makes it attractive.
Great. I think this is the first step in going through that process. I think that's a good way to go, because long overdue for the village. I know with one of the proposed projects down there, the first rendition of it basically looked like a building from Somerville. And I remember that, and it's not that long ago, and it was, and even though we did have guidelines at the planning board, there was some, they were looking for some exceptions within those guidelines to do it, and if we had, an historic district, it would just totally, it would have been a non-starter. And it would, and I do think that when you get historic districts, when you have some sort of continuity in keeping the heritage of the facades of the fronts of them, even though through the years,
Mhm.
a lot of times through history, things are done for functionality,
Mhm.
whatever they could do at the time.
Yeah.
And so, but that's okay. But I think that it does retain the value, and that's why people come to Cohasset. They come to Cohasset because it looks like Cohasset, they don't come here because they want it to turn into something else. So I think to preserve that, and especially the common, we have it, and it's worked well. And hopefully with the village, it could be the same thing. But again, this is just the first step. There's a lot of
Steps.
steps and things to
Yeah.
talk about, and there's a lot of public input and input from the residents and the people at Chamber of Commerce and everyone else, and their voice will be heard. But I think it's something helpful when it's all said and done.
Other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Jackie.
Could be restrictive, to general public. It's not having such a district it's limiting as well, too. So it doesn't always benefit everybody.
Well, I think it could be a very cooperative relationship, and actually, my son lives in a historic district in Acton, and although he doesn't have a really historic house, he had to go before the historic commission, and he said they were really actually very helpful because you'll have a couple of architects on the committee. You'll have someone from the historical, there are sort of guidelines on who gets to be on this study committee. Someone from the Historical Society, an architect, a realtor, a resident of the area, a planning board member.
Maybe we just have to look a little more closer at the Community Preservation Act and talk to the higher ups in the state and just see if this is something that we can actually work on. Because usually for the historic resources, we look at buildings or areas that we think are significant. We just have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay, actually, this consultant, or actually, I spoke to the chairman of a historic district committee in Marion. They had a video, and they actually use CPC money. If I can find that, but
That's something that we just need to clarify.
yeah, you should, yeah.
And that we work with.
Yeah.
the state. His name is Stuart, and I think we just need to ask him a few questions about historic resources
Yeah.
and how it can expand out beyond a physical building or ground or resource. Cover
Okay.
There's a coalition of all the communities that have
Yeah.
CPCs. And there's an executive director that
Oh.
has become an expert on the
Okay.
laws governing the Community Preservation Act as well as CPC thing.
Right.
And one of the questions would be, do paying consultants fit within the description of money that can be used for these
Okay.
purposes? So,
Well,
but we can just
You'll find,
resolve that one way or the
you'll
other.
find out, right?
It is or it isn't.
Okay.
It certainly seems to fall within the purview of historic preservation. Just an area, not.
Well, I
The
think,
concept does. The question is what is
Concept
the
does,
allocation of the funds?
Certainly ask him, but I know when we did the windows at the town hall over 20 years ago, beyond the design and the refurbishing of them, we had a historical preservation expert brought in to figure out, with the windows, how they should be preserved and things of that nature. So
Paid for by
paid
CPC.
for by CPC. So that was an important part of preserving it, to figure out what their age was, what, so when you refurbish them, you will get to the right year, their functionality, things of that nature. So
But in that example, it's that's considered. historic.
that's correct. Yep.
So that's,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
just the challenge of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really great idea. And I can understand why you would want to expand. Cover more of Cohasset. But I would just, just look a little further.
sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any,
And if, over the next few weeks, if you get additional information that you think would be useful for the consideration, meanwhile, we'll check with the CPC expert
okay,
and see where we come out.
okay, I probably should, I could send you a list of historically significant buildings in the downtown, if that would be of interest to you, but,
Well, you did have some, at least.
okay.
Thing
maybe-
that we-
Nice
good.
chart
Yeah.
of all the buildings.
Okay,
All right, thank you very
Can I ask a
much.
question before you finish?
Oh, you got one more.
This is, what's difficult about this is that it is vague and opaque.
Mhm.
And it's not your fault, it's the fault of the process.
Yeah.
And when you have a historic preservation expert in your local town or in your town hall, you have the ability to go to them and they can walk you
Walk you
through
through.
this, and it's just not clear.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, how to make it clearer. Whether that, and it may take a little bit of money rather than a lot of money, but it's hard to take a program like historic preservation, which is extremely well detailed by the federal government. There's a lot of money in the endowment for the humanities. And I feel like, do we know anyone in the town that actually is an expert or an experienced person in that area that perhaps either you or we or somebody could talk to just get a little bit more support? Because otherwise, it's almost like reading Greek.
Yeah.
And it's not as standardized as housing, and it's not as standardized as economic development. It's pretty specialized, and there are people that actually have entire careers about it. So I don't want you to leave and then end up feeling like, okay, now what did I learn? And what can I do? And honestly, who's gonna help me do this? Because it's as when we met, you know, this is an idea of a couple of things, wanting to preserve the town as a whole in certain ways. And the other is that it's economic development, right? I mean, if the town's downtown looks better, has a greater integrity and has more useful functional things to do, people will come. They won't come if they don't see that or they don't feel that way. So she's kind of between a rock and a hard spot.
But we don't really do anything development.
Oh, no, I know you don't, but I'm saying as,
But I mean, this is,
That's a
I think
result.
it's getting way more complicated than it needs to be. There are
yeah.
all kinds of historic districts. Mass Historical Society, you have the Humanities Council, all kinds of resources.
And I would say that while she's not an expert in creating historic districts, we do have a historic expert sitting in front of us who
Right.
wrote one of the town history books, so.
Yeah.
That's right.
yes, yeah.
Thank you, Jack.
And
Okay.
help with the Central Cemetery's recent.
Yeah,
years
Yeah.
for projects.
yeah,
That's a wonderful project.
yeah, that was really,
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
thank you.
We'll look right into it.
Huh?
Right into it.
Yeah,
Mr. Town Manager. Please join us. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
You're always
Hi.
invited.
My Monday wouldn't be complete. So I believe Tracy has distributed both electronically and in paper. So let me walk through this with you. You asked me a few things. When I have an update of your general finances, you asked me to run numbers on what funding the Holly Hill projects.
Yep.
It was so big. So let me just give you an update. So the good news is that after having worked with our accountants, you have more money in your balances than I reported to you.
Yep.
So as of right now, you have $22,208 in the historic preservation account, $64,837 in the community housing account, and $2,312,740 in your undesignated account. And that doesn't include the $496,000 that wasn't spent from last year. So
That would bring that
yes,
number at 2.7 or
0.8.
2.8?
You have $2,800,000 available for anything. Yeah, it's the next section.
Okay, yeah.
And then I did your 26 numbers, the projected revenue, which I think will be higher, but being very conservative.
What do you, what percentage are you using? That,
It's a 2.5% increase on the town's piece, which is what happens anyway.
Oh.
No new growth factored in because I don't add that in.
okay.
And then we do a 15% state match, even though the state match has always been much higher. So,
Oh, I guess that's the match I'm thinking about. What, okay.
yeah, so that includes the town's number. Again, I didn't print that sheet, but I actually, I now have created this much more elaborate spreadsheet that has the bond funding chart and so, but I can show you actually what the projections are in just a second. So, for the next few years. So for 26, it's got to be the next bond payment on the Beechwood and Milliken projects. And then you'll have to allocate the money up as you always do, right? So what you really have available going into the town meeting where we're going into is 74,000 that can only be spent on open space, 138,000 plus only on housing, 96,000 only on community, on historic preservation, but $3 million, more than $3 million you can spend on anything. So it's a lot of money in there, which is good. So any questions on those general? Yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
So last month we only had 1.
I know, because
You're the extra 8.
now, there was another $1 million that our auditor had counted as spent, but it had to do with a town hall project that didn't happen. It was the $1 million for the affordable units at One Pleasant. So so that actually was approved, but the project itself failed.
Failed.
So when I walked them through it, they're like, oh, okay. So
Slides back.
yeah, slides back. So it really never got,
That's where it came.
that's where it came from.
Lots of pretty much.
So I wanted to make sure though, but I talked to them before I said yes. When I said before you last time, I figured that was gonna happen, but I didn't want to say it until I was sure. So the next sheet is the Holly Hill project. And so I'm sorry, I probably should have bolded this, I apologize, but make it easier to read. So they requested $1 million if I recall, right?
Yeah.
Right, so I give you two options here. If you go for $1 million, right? Full funding in cash, if you give them $1 million, there's $3 million available, you still have $2 million,
Mhm.
right? Second, if you split it half and half, if you give them $500,000 in cash, then you bonded $500,000. If you give them $500,000 in cash, you still have $2.5 million in undesignated cash. That's in addition to the other money, by the way, the open space and community housing money that's still sitting there. And then I did it over 10 years and 5 years, just because it wasn't that much money. I think the interest rate I was using was 4.5%, which is roughly where things are, but again, it really depends on where we end up. And then what I did at the bottom is I showed you what that would mean, right? So Marianne, the revenue projections are in that column.
So this is with the match.
It's with the match. So, and in fact, it's actually, real numbers are really probably higher than this. I think they are higher. I just haven't readjusted them yet. Because our numbers, our base keeps going up. So because as our new growth, as our tax
Oh,
levy goes up, I think we're generating by ourselves just about that much. And the state match is actually on top of that. So
not to estimate on the match, just in case.
so there has not been a year in CPC history where there's not been a match. And remember, the match is not just Will Estate. It's also money that comes out of the registry of deeds. So it is a pool that collects anyway. So the state has never not distributed that money. So no, you shouldn't guess 30 or 40 or 50%. That's happened in the past. I would never budget for that.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable. These are very conservative numbers.
Okay.
But that's a fair question.
The other thing is that you have Boston now in the pot. You know, so if they're gonna lower the match, that's one massive municipality. It's not just little old Cohasset saying, please give us the,
Right.
you know, the 15 or 20% match. So they've got a, you know, you've got quite a weight on that,
Right.
on the scales of CPC.
There's a couple hundred communities that now use to just,
Yeah.
you're right, David, that date, when that came in, that changed the whole dynamic.
Yeah,
Yeah, Stuart just warned last year that the match could go down.
Right. So it's,
23 and 54%.
so I'm only, we use 15. These are all using
Oh.
15% match.
Oh.
15's.
Oh, that's. a
Oh.
good-
Yeah, so it's very conservative. It's always better to have more money than less when you have revenue, right? So those are the revenue projections over the next 10 years, 27 to 30. Well, actually, it's 8 years, I guess. Did I do the math wrong? One. Oh, it's only 9, sorry. I don't know how I missed. Oh, you know what? I must have cut off the last year. All right. That's okay. So using the 10-year numbers, and then remember, there's also a debt payment which I'm also taking out for the recreation projects have already been funded. You'll end up with a 428 left over in 27, and it goes up because the recreation projects are all paid off in 34. So if you notice a big leap between 34 and 35, that's because in 34, the recreation projects that have already been funded pay off. If you only do a 5-year, you obviously have less, but also means your numbers jump up much more quickly. And then they jump up again to full funding basically by 2035. So those are just two examples. So those numbers will change depending on what the actual interest rates are. But those would come in, if you give the money for FY26, you have to start paying it till FY27. Excuse me.
Chris, in the fourth column, the annual payment.
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, those are if you bonded.
What is it in third column?
I'm sorry, I didn't identify. The first one is a 10-year, the second one's 5.
All right.
So I bonded it over 10 years in the first scenario and then only 5 years in the second, because it saves money. If you notice at the bottom, each column, you'd save about $50,000 in interest if you do it over 5 years. It just means you have to pay more per year, that's all. But it's not a lot. I mean, $500,000 in the grand scheme of things is not that much money. So in fact, we probably wouldn't even have to go to bond if we did it for 5 years. We could just use a rolling ban, which would be even cheaper interest. So typically.
Chris? Where in there is the 1 million that's been set aside for the housing? not 60 ounce.
Anything that's already been set aside is already set aside, doesn't count in here.
So it is,
Whatever's already been, yeah, this is undesignated for
okay,
project.
good.
Anything that's already been set aside for a project that's been voted at town meeting is already accounted for in these numbers.
Okay.
When is it supposed to be used?
I don't know, how long do we?
You typically give 3 years. And then if people need an extension, they can always come back for an extension, but 3 years is usually the cap. You don't want to have stuff lingering for too long.
How long has it been so far?
First part may have been more than 3.
Which
We're
project
talking
you're
about
talking?
the Housing trust.
Yeah.
that- I think there was.
Yeah, yeah,
500,000.
but that's all been, whatever's been, I believe that's all been transferred into their accounts.
Okay.
So whatever's been approved at town meeting is already out. And by the way, it doesn't mean that there aren't leftover money still in some accounts. I don't know that off the top of my
I
head.
don't think that-
Yeah, but it's that, in that case, it went into their hands. They exist as an entity. You didn't give it to them for a project. You gave it to them for
Oh,
their
yeah,
mission.
no,
right?
but
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm not even aware how much they spent. So,
They actually went through it with the select board, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago when Steve Ballmer was here?
That was the last meeting, yeah.
Yeah, they have put money into the project proper on Elm Street. They bought the upstairs unit from as part of the Habitat, it was the old Habitat project that's there.
oh, okay.
So they're in the process of refurbishing it and then flipping it. And then, so that'll,
Okay.
and they've also apparently they've helped buy down a couple of properties for affordability purposes too. And they did sell that one piece on Heather Drive. They got a little money for that. So it didn't get developed, but it went back on the tax rolls. So you have a lot of money.
If you were recommending, what would you recommend?
Well, I know that there's going to be an ask for town hall at some point in the not too terribly distant future. I know you have for the historical side. I mean, something to renovate the historic side, right? But again, I don't think that's all. Again, I'm not saying anything that's been talked about in public already. There's a community group, a not-for-profit community group that wants to manage the auditorium side. And so again, those are still that's still very much in the small d discussion frame. There's nothing that's together. And there's no formal plan, but there's an effort being made to finalize something like that. I don't know if that a request to the CPC would come till next year anyway. I don't think there's any work that would be done on the auditorium in the super short term anyway. Though again, as I say that, it's not impossible. Considering that, I think they had a need they want to hit a number, right? Fairly
Want to
soon.
hit a number and they want to hit a deadline.
Right. So
Mark?
if you're comfortable, simply because, again, I don't want to, there's $3 million available. I mean, so $1 million is a third of it. It's not insubstantial, but it's real. And the Holly Hill project is also real. It's ready to go, right? Either way, you could give them the full $1 million up front. If you bond it, or, if you want to
Yep.
leave a little more in cash just to have, you can, bond it. I wouldn't bond it for more than 5 years because it's such a comparatively small amount of money. But if you want to stretch your cash flow out a little bit, then you could do a half. So I think you can give them the whole, I think the $1 million is definitely, if the board, all of you want to do it.
Yep.
You definitely have the money for it. And then if you were gonna, this is one of those projects where giving cash is probably easy. That said, it is land, so it's gonna be valuable for a very long time. So if you wanted to bond it for a little bit of time, I'd go no longer than 5 years. That would be my recommendation. If you got question?
I missed the last meeting.
Yeah.
I'm still puzzling why this is being called open space, because really it's an historic site with some wetlands beside it. Nobody ever explained where the rest of the land is, this 5.
I thought we were supposed to
And
tour.
how you have access to it without going. through
Mark,
the
do you-
historic site.
Yeah.
Do you want to come up and? speak to
I'm
that?
happy to answer any questions. Yeah, we went through all that at the last
I know.
meeting.
And I thought we were supposed to be set up for a tour.
Excuse me, Jenny, Jenny, Jenny? Can we hold this? Mark, could you come up so that people who are
Thank you.
on,
Because they need to hear you and see you on the.
Oh, all right, well.
thank you very much.
If there is anybody.
I looked at your map, which is farm, I'm familiar with that.
Right,
That's not 5.3 acres.
5.23 acres is what it is.
Is, just that little map that you gave with just the farm building?
Well, no, the 5.23, you know the farm. You drive
Yeah,
in the
and I know
driveway.
There's wetlands. once you get
There
there.
is some wetlands down there. We have the greenhouses down there.
Yeah.
So if you drive in the main driveway, almost all of the property is yet down to the right towards the ocean. So it's the farm area that you see, then down. Some of it is wet, some of it is greenhouses and so forth. That's really, and it goes up to really where the buildings are, but there's very little on the left. It's all on the right down.
My question is this. If you develop your historic site, which is actually the most valuable part of that whole enterprise, that can't be open space. You have to have some access toward the rest of your open space without going through the historic site, because you can never leave that just open to anybody at any time. See what I'm saying? So is there a way?
Everything's open from dusk to dawn, 365 years. See,
But once you invest a lot of money in renovating and building and so
well,
forth.
first we gotta buy it.
Yeah, I realize that, but here's my question.
That's the key.
Yeah, and I think you're using open space as a way to buy.
We're using historic open space and maybe even affordable housing.
But this is my question. No historic site is left untended.
Is that a law?
No, it isn't a law. It's just when you invest in a place, it's responsibility.
To keep it,
When you have a lot of assets, you
Right.
have to keep it safe.
well, actually,
So
that-
it doesn't, it's not like taking a walk up Turkey Hill, is what I'm saying. You know, you always have to have somebody there when you have.
well,
those
don't you have
facilities.
somebody there?
Yeah.
Unless there's a way to access the back part of
Oh,
it
sure there is. Oh, yeah.
without going through the farm.
No, there is. Well, yeah, I mean, if you go down Jerusalem Road toward the beach, there is a driveway that down there on the left. But people can, dusk to dawn, come in, people do. They park there, they walk the trails either on our property or on the other properties that are in back of us. So it's, the buildings will be renovated after we buy the property, will be renovated and so forth. But,
That's
know,
3 million more.
yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of property to just say anybody can come anytime to.
But they already
That's
do
all.
it.
Not 24, that's not fine.
But they don't, they're not renovating.
Depending on when you get there, right, yeah, you're right. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Yeah, so no,
I'm more comfortable if I know there's a way to get to them.
yeah. And you can, again, dawn to dusk, you just drive in and there's a path, you go right down and the whole area is up, you know.
The other question we had was, and I brought this up at some time. It would be nice, I know we're buying the land, but we're buying the land to do something with it, including the historic site. And there's never been any indication that you're going to be hiring architectural historians and other people.
What we already have.
Good. All right, that's.
We've got
Okay.
campaign
And
consultants and
interpretive
a lot of people have volunteered time and the new building, we have, renderings and so forth, yeah.
It would be helpful for you to hire a good interpretive specialist who's experienced in interpreting farm facilities or whatever it is.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't, yeah, the goal really is the existing buildings won't really look very different, if different at all, when we're done.
They should.
Right. And my board has been very clear. When we start talking about it, they, oh gosh, they say, wait a minute, we got to keep it, a little rustic. We will.
Well, it's
But
not
the
just-
difference will be, it'll be tighter. The space you guys talked about a second ago will be more user friendly for, 2024 as opposed to,
As long as you preserve enough of the historic structure.
Oh, yeah.
It
No, no.
it could be interpreted too.
right. And we're talking about a new building too, which will be built, but the existing buildings will look exactly the same. Inside will be a little more weather tight and that.
It's also something that the CPC.
I know,
could help support.
right. I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a
Sure.
question. When you
Yeah.
walked in, there was always a building on this side, which was the caretaker's house.
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's-
Talked about doing a.
Then there's a field and then
Used
there's
to
the
be the
barn.
Sure. Yeah, I think they were kind of hoping soon when the weather gets a little better.
Yeah.
It's been,
So
it's
we
been
were
pretty,
talking about it.
Yeah,
but I'll mention.
Find a picture.
Yeah, no, it's with your mind's eye. It's,
Yeah, with my mind, because I used to go up there to the big house, which I
Yes.
think now is no longer.
No, that's not.
That's.
We don't even go near the big house now. Yeah, yeah.
I think they could resolve any
Yeah.
issues people have. Or any issues that might come up from doing it, doing the tour.
Right.
And I do understand that we're in the middle of, January, February here, so it
The
can be
weather.
dodgy, but,
Yeah,
but I think before we vote on, we definitely have to get out there to do the tour.
I'll get after them, David, and make sure they schedule that because it's only 5.23 acres. It's not like you got to pack a lunch, it's right. Well, Tom was up there. Tom did a tour, a little while ago. But it does help to see because people think, well, White's Farm, White's Farm goes all the way to Forest Ave. Well,
Farm
it
was
used to.
big,
A
yeah,
long time ago, was everything from the beach all the way up to Jerusalem Road,
all the way.
the Main Street all the way. But now it's, yeah, we're very excited
That's
about it.
historic site. At the end of your interpretation, we work with the farm.
Yeah, a lot of good things, a lot of things, good.
I just want to be sure that the land will be open to the public. And build these or renovate the historic buildings and build a new building, that it's not gonna be shut off or closed off to the
Right.
public. That-
Right, no, we're happy to have a restriction. You guys will want a conservation restriction
Yeah.
too.
Right.
So we didn't talk about that last meeting, but I'm aware that that is a requirement. And what we have now is almost exactly half, just by happenstance, is already under a CR. And it's the trustees.
Mhm.
And then I've explained to people from my experience at CPC that the rest is going to have to go under a CR too. And everybody's like, good. Because especially, people who are talking about donating and stuff, right? They don't want to, you don't want to donate it to it and then didn't work out.
Yeah.
We're going to put up a subdivision. It's got to be a CR and so that the entire 5.23 will be under a CR.
Okay.
And we'll talk about what the terms of that and stuff are. The trustees CR, they're pretty strict, but they're loose. They let things happen that are related to farming and so forth and so on. Yeah.
Because it is an historic site.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the crown jewel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, if we vote them in, you're confident that you're going to raise the other 2 million?
Have you already started?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got, depending on how you look, we have cash money and we have committed money. And I think the cash money is right now 800,000 or something like that. And cash money, all in, it's about 1.5 million. And we haven't even started. We really, haven't, this is from our board of directors, our campaign people, and we've just started getting out there into the community. What they call the silent phase is now getting a little louder. But we haven't gone like great guns yet. And we have several people of very substantial means who are very interested. And so that's why, and people do always ask, what if you can't raise the money? And we really, based on what we're seeing, we're going to be able to do it with your help, of course.
The other answer to that, though, is if they don't raise the money, we don't put up the money.
Oh, yeah.
And the CPC
Yeah.
money is
I'm hoping
secure.
they do.
Yeah.
That's why I think,
Do a last dollar out? Is CPC the last dollar out? Well, you
you
haven't.
guys got to decide how to do it. Ideally for us, we get the $1 million, right? And that goes towards the purchase of the real estate. Easy peasy, no invoices and so forth. We're at the closing table and there's your $1 million went in to buy the property. And then the rest of the money, the renovation and so forth, comes. We want to keep doing it, but first we got to own the property. We don't own the property. So we have limited there's certain things we can't do now that we really want to do, but it's not our property.
Yeah.
So that would be the cleanest way to do it. And then, to get the property. And, Tom, you're right, the restrictions are under the purchase and sale agreement by the end of the year. But there is a provision that it can be extended a few months if necessary. We have to put down a little more money and stuff like that.
So if you write this up as a proposal in total. So right now we're hearing about one part and there's other parts and there's other.
Well, and
that
I
happen.
don't- it's all one thing, but chronologically, and we can't stop building the building until we own the property. We can't renovate the building until so we got to own the property first. So, exactly.
Yeah.
So but we're not saying, okay, it just has to happen, and that's the, at it.
But does it actually turn into a document where you describe it as just that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have slideshows, we have,
It's decked, it never-
oh, yeah, right, you saw it, right?
This is about a proposal.
Well, you guys have a written proposal.
The proposal that they submitted
Yeah.
contains a lot of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, and then as David said, we have slideshows, that focus on this, focus on that, and, people that are interested. And again, with our consultants and so forth, a lot of pretty pictures of the animals in the farm.
Write you a history of farming.
Well, I'm sure Jackie, my wife does a little history too. My wife's at the Historical Society. But yeah, and the history is the history's.
Oh.
The his-
Okay.
You're also even find that if I ever.
You're not gonna find another farming class.
Well,
Well, I
any
mean,
question? Well, to take a look.
Oh.
We had touched, we've said this the other time, which I mentioned, the numbers are incredible. 20,000 school children last year.
that was just for organic farming.
Yeah, that's all about just
We need
it.
to help animals.
Actually, I do have one question.
Yeah.
But you guys, do you, so like I know that, so I'm part of the PSO at the schools. And my boys have both done programs at the farm. And so do you make revenue off of that or is that all, like, because I know we paid, so where does that money cover that the people pay for those programs?
We basically, through those programs, the produce that we sell and so forth, it covers about 80% of the costs. Again, we are a nonprofit, obviously. And then the rest of the 20, just so we're talking about operating expense. The other 20 is through donation on an
That's
annual
what-
basis.
Right, yeah,
It's
thanks.
pretty good.
Yeah, we try to keep, the prices where they should be, and we have scholarships for folks that can't, need a little help and stuff like that, so.
Great. Well, I think we're good.
Okay,
All right.
good. Well, thank you.
If you come for a tour. when-
Absolutely, well, that's what we're talking about. I'll get after,
For sure.
I'll get after the people and try to get, and if everyone can't come at the same time, we'll do
Yeah, we can-
two. Again, it's pretty easy walk. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it very much. All right, did we ever hear back from Annette Sawchuck?
I did not hear that. I did email her today, but I didn't hear back.
Okay,
That was
Uh,
on the fence, right?
For what?
on the fence, I was just wondering, we had asked them to think about what they might add to the pot. And she said that she would think about it and get back to us, so I was trying to think,
Because they were looking for full funding.
we could wrap this up very shortly, but I think the committee expressed an interest in seeing more participation on the part of the Sand Beach Association. So,
Because they were looking for full
We'll see.
funding and.
Yes.
it's not-
Because
Yeah, that made
we're
me
trying
kind of
to do
nervous,
that.
yeah.
theirs was just the eligibility the last time.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
And,
what,
and as was Jackie's, right? This time
Yes.
was
Jackie's
just
yes.
eligibility.
Yep. and that's why we'll check on that eligibility in terms of.
Yeah.
So we're asking them to pitch in a little more than 25.
Well, yeah, well,
Exactly.
they were looking for 25 and that was a full amount. I said, wait a minute. Why are we fully
Well-
funding it? Yeah.
It says other funding sources, 2,500 from the Sandy Beach Association.
I think there was a
I don't know.
qualifier, possibly, something like that.
Possibly.
She had said it wasn't a commitment. And
No.
that was the question of,
Well,
Were
could
they-
Probably commit a little bit.
Yeah.
well, that's, but what she did say is that they're doing the plover fencing at their own expense, so that should be considered part of that. At any rate, I'd just like to get
Yeah, a little more.
closure on whether they're gonna do something or not, and then we can decide whether we want to vote on it and how we
Yeah.
want to vote, so.
So they, maybe if she can get her.
Well, she did say that they could allocate 2,500
Yeah.
against
Is
20,000.
that
but-
10%?
Could,
Yeah, I said, okay, that just doesn't
could,
sound.
not
yeah,
will.
Could, but they
There's a
could.
difference, yeah.
I says, wait a minute.
But maybe she could be encouraged to get a final. proposal.
Yeah, it gets a little more.
Mary Ann, first of all, thank you so much for being willing to jump in on I had thought we might have at least a citizen. But at any rate, I think
You
we can
can all
all
listen
bear,
to me.
we can all bear a little learning.
We've pretty much discussed a lot of everything, but here's my presentation.
Great.
I'll listen.
Okay.
I'm here to speak about the CPC, the Cohasset Community Preservation Committee, and its role with the Community Preservation Act. The Community Preservation Act is a Massachusetts state law established in 2000 as a smart growth tool. It allows cities and towns to make grants to propose public projects that support, expand, and preserve a community's unique assets. Projects that pass the committee are voted at the town meeting. The town of Cohasset is one of 200 towns in the state that adopted this law, and ours in 2001 for our seaside town, and created this community to execute it. Our membership is made up of the Conservation Commission, the Historical Commission, Planning Board, Recreation Commission, Housing Authority, and Open Space and Rec. Specifically, the Community Preservation Act creates a local community preservation fund and funds 4 categories: open space, historical resources, outdoor recreation, and community housing. To break it down, open space is to acquire, create, preserve open space and natural resources, and rehab open space or natural resources. Outdoor recreation is the funds are used to acquire, create, preserve, and rehab land and outdoor facilities for recreation use. For community housing, our CPA funds are used to acquire, create, support, and preserve community housing, as well as rehab community housing. And historic resources, the CPA funds can be used to acquire, preserve, or rehabilitate historic resources that are listed on the state Register of Historic Places or determined to be locally significant. That's where our question came in.
Mhm.
Community preservation monies are raised through a local property tax surcharge of 1.5%. Different parts of the states have up to 3%, and in this town, we do 1.5%. The Department of Revenue administers this fund and provides matching distributions each year at variable rates. They range between 23 and 53%. Further, the town of Cohasset can bond against future CPA property tax surcharges, not the match, to fund expensive projects. Eligible projects must reflect the community priorities for funding and address why is it needed? Who are the beneficiaries? Does the community support the project? Is it a capital improvement? And groups that can apply for CPA funds include the town of Cohasset, community organizations, friends of park organizations, historic societies, housing and neighborhood developers, neighborhood coalitions, public agencies, nonprofits, recreation associations. These areas where funding is not allowed is you must be represented by one of the groups I mentioned. The CPA funds cannot be used to pay for projects already funded by another source. The CPA funds cannot be used for operations, maintenance, programming, park events, artificial turf, public art, streetscapes, gymnasiums, stadiums, or similar structures. And the CPA funds must advance a public purpose. It just can't be a full private project. Lastly, the CPA funds must augment municipal funds. They can't replace existing funding. The Community Preservation Act has made a great impact in the town of Cohasset. Since adopting our seaside town, we've generated over 8.4 million in revenue, and that was from 2019, so it's probably much higher. And without the Community Preservation Act, the following projects could not be funded, such as the construction of 2 ball fields at North Main Street, which were former gravel pits, which was considered an outdoor recreation project. The restoration of the Sailing Club's historic boathouse, a historical resource project. The restored roof of the Paul Pratt Memorial Library, a historical resource project. The repairing of the Parker Ave boat ramp, an outdoor recreation project. The replacement of the screen doors at Elm Street's Cohasset Housing Authority, and then later the windows and doors, which is also a community housing project. We've provided access to mobility impaired people at Sandy Beach as well, and that's an outdoor recreation project. Just briefly, we'll talk about applying. Applications should review our material posted on the website. Do enter an application and it will be reviewed in a first public hearing where the committee asks questions. And then it's great to have a slideshow, as we all know, and supporting documents. You can apply for how much money that you want, but remember there are other projects that want to get funded. So we recommend trying to narrow down your financial estimates. And if the application meets the standards, it moves to a second hearing, such as what happened today, where committee members discuss allocations and funding. And if that moves beyond that, then it moves then to be reviewed before, if it gets recommended, then it moves to the select board and advisory committee, and they review it as well. And if it then gets approved by the select board and advisory committee, and this is all very broad strokes, it gets, goes to a formal vote at town meeting. And once approved, there are lots of checks and balances and reporting that happens to make sure the project uses funds and finishes as expected. In conclusion, the Community Preservation Act creates places where people can engage and facilitates partnerships to build a better community. Everyone, residents and taxpayers of Cohasset are a partner, and the Community Preservation Act is your fund. The community seeks your input on how these funds should be spent, and we want groups with projects that enhance and improve the community in the 4 fund areas and that promote and support this board. And if you have questions, you can ask me after the meeting or email.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Very good. Yeah.
Well done. Any questions?
Just the right pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the word usage is completely accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, I think. How do we want to proceed on Holly Hill? Do people want more information? Do we hold up until we have a chance to go through and see and take a tour of the place? Shall we just keep this alive and schedule something that will take place in the next, I don't know, 6 weeks or something?
I'm ready to vote on it. My questions were answered.
Anybody else?
I could vote on it. I just wonder if due diligence is best to walk it.
Okay,
Marion?
well, I don't think we're in a
If we
particular,
should walk,
I don't think we're in a particular
I'm-
rush, so there's no reason that we need to vote on this tonight.
Well, didn't you say that it also has to go before a couple other boards before it actually goes to the town meeting? So once we vote on it, it can go, move
Yes.
on?
it floats up, right? And usually, they just, it's like to verify, to make sure that we have the financials, the balances that we say we do. And if they think it meets the expectations of the town and there's the big town plan that's established for like the 10-year plan. They want to make sure that it meets those expectations.
So we still have time before the,
Right, we
Town
just have.
meeting.
we could do one more meeting to vote on it and then pass it on to the select board and to the other.
I think, but.
I'd really like to,
February,
I'd like to see
When
what,
does the warrant,
Forward.
Huh?
when do we have to have everything finalized for the meeting? Approximately?
Copy of the dates. warrant closes, it's sometime early April.
April, right?
April?
Well, in order to get all the recommendations up to the select board.
Right.
Advisory committee, so I would say March,
Okay,
so about a month.
Okay,
So like,
okay,
You're not
We
gonna,
tour it before next meeting?
huh?
you're not gonna be able
can
to.
try.
Yeah.
Like 1 month.
So
Not unless you have Hunter Woods ready to go.
I would like to just before we voted to really just have a sense of all the money we've been asked for.
Yeah.
Because it's not just Holly Hill,
Yeah.
there's the housing
think
stuff,
that-
which I know a portion will come out of theirs, but there's not, it didn't seem like there was enough to cover it, or maybe it was just
Yeah.
about.
I can tell you.
And then the Sandy Beach, and I just want to make sure we know what the total number
So,
is.
yeah,
So
for
that we
everybody.
really know where we end up when everything is sort of come in.
We
That's
have
sort of just how I feel.
Housing has 138,000 available. We'd have to add another 136,000 out of the general
What, for the housing?
pot for that project. Because it's an 800 plus $11 project.
Well, no, they're only asking for two something, 8 is the total.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we only have
but we only
138.
have
138.
138,000
Oh.
actually allocated.
Yeah,
So we
So it has to
dip
come out of
into the pot.
undesignated.
yeah, so we have.
We have a pretty substantial pot, as it
Yeah.
turns out,
Right.
so.
It's, yeah.
All right, so we'll try to get a tour scheduled in the next
A list of
3
all the
or 4
ones.
weeks, and then hold a meeting in either late February or early March.
Yeah.
To keep
Maybe we
things
can
moving.
vote on
Everything
everything at one
one
time,
time.
maybe.
I
Does that make
You
sense?
can vote on the housing. I'd
Or
like
the
to report
housing,
back to the
or-
board. We have a meeting.
I think it's up to, we could do anything you want. We could
I mean,
take
unless
these
you-
and separate out the housing, because we have all the information, I think. And we know that we're not in any jeopardy of overspending. So I think that if people were of a mind to vote now on the housing, that would be perfectly easy to do. And if they would rather wait for some reason,
I'm also thinking about by holding off on another month, we slowing them down. on
Well, the
their-
thing is, they can't
on their
really do,
fundraising.
Thinking that he was going to get. the
well,
money.
that they can't
Yeah,
really
and
do anything
so-
until it goes to town meeting and gets approved by the town
I
anyway.
know, but they're anxious to get out to their funders. They're waiting for us to say yes, so they can really start pushing. mean,
I
remember
don't think that agenda should affect us. I think if we. if
They
we
should be
feel
able to
that-
do that.
I think we should really be clear on where the property is and walk it.
Yeah,
Just
Okay,
Oh.
so we'll try to schedule that in the next,
Yeah.
within the next month.
Yeah.
And we
Um,
probably need to hear back on Sandy Beach,
Yes, we do.
definitely.
So,
And what
So-
are they gonna tell us?
What
Just-
they're,
That they're
what,
gonna provide more
what they,
resources?
yeah.
what
what
they're
they-
gonna do.
So-
Right,
And a
So-
final proposal.
and a final proposal,
So
yeah.
in the past, how variable is the share that you're willing to commit to any project? So far I've sort of heard
Totally.
about a 50%.
Totally variable. No,
Or it's
totally variable. What we
depending on-
want is participation. It depends on the resources that are available, depends on a whole lot of things and scale. You know, if it's a small project, like $25,000, relatively small project, then I think we'd like to see them doing something just than coming to CPC. But on something like Holly Hill, they've got to be able to put in better than
He's already,
50%.
he's
So,
already
yeah.
said he's got money
So-
already in hand.
So it depends on the project. It's a
Well,
long-winded
last
answer to that.
The last year.
20 something.
Trying to make a point that
25 maybe?
when you apply for grants, you really should. a little bit.
Yeah, cause some money in, yeah, some money there.
Yeah.
You
All
gotta
right.
have some skin in the pot.
Does somebody want to make a proposal, or not a proposal, but a motion on the Cohasset Housing Project?
Second,
Somebody want to make a motion? We need a motion to begin with.
so we don't have anything actually stated yet.
No,
Yeah, well,
Okay. You want to state.
no, I mean, if you don't have a copy of the proposal,
No, I have a copy of it. Yeah.
The-
It's no.
that's, somebody has to
The
propose.
issue is we need somebody to make
Move
a
it.
motion.
well, I'm not gonna get you out.
It's your project, is it not?
All right, I move that we accept the housing and gardens project.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Jamie, I.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Jennifer Dial, aye.
Carol Bessic, aye.
Tom Reardon, aye.
Frog eye.
And whether I'll die.
Okay. So, I think that's, and then we'll be in touch with, Annette to,
Get
find out
more
where they're
information.
doing, and actually, they have not submitted a proposal yet. So
Oh,
they had.
Well, they
the
have submitted-
Feasibility one, right?
Well, they have a
They have a
feasibility
final
stuff.
proposal.
Do they have a final
No,
proposal?
Yeah, they have
They
a,
don't, I don't think,
That was a preliminary.
that was,
proposal.
yeah, I think that's
well, they
right.
had all kinds of paperwork they gave.
Yeah, but all that was background.
Oh, yeah. I'm more than, okay, but that's not exactly a proposal, that's just
All right,
Feelings?
No, it's for eligibility.
for eligibility. Okay.
all right, I think that's it in terms of motions for the day and trying to move things forward. We have
have to
minutes from the last
We
meeting.
have to do the minutes from the last
Yeah.
meeting, yeah.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes. for
Thank you.
last meeting.
I'll second.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Jenny, do you want to start on
Oh,
those?
Ginny. Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Jennifer Dial, I.
Carol Bessic, aye.
Tom Reed and I.
David Frog Eye.
Mary Weatherall, aye.
Excellent. Any other business to come before this august tribunal? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, we can do this by acclamation.
Aye.
No, I'd like to stay.
We can't agree.
Okay.
Individually too, but this time we could pop over to the Folly Hill Farm.
Oh, I
I
would
think
like
the person there, though, you know,
now.
Who's